second to start the recording. All right. Welcome to the Hawaii State Board of Naturopathic Medicine publicly noticed meeting. We will show a brief video of how you can participate and afterwards provide additional information.
Welcome to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
When the meeting begins momentarily, the chair will take a roll call, explain any specific rules for this particular board, and then move to public comment. The name of the board member will appear on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For instance, this is board member Y, and this is board member E. Public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. You can indicate that you are ready to testify by clicking on the Raise Hand button being circled by the mouse on your screen now. At the appropriate time, the board will recognize you to speak and ask you to unmute your mic as shown here. Again, public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. Public attendees will not be able to unmute their microphone until recognized by the board. Public attendees who are recognized to testify will be asked to identify themselves by name and their affiliated organization if applicable. Please mute your microphone when you are finished speaking as a courtesy to others and members of the board. Public attendees will not be able to unmute themselves after the testimony is completed unless recognized again after raising their hand. At some point during the meeting, the board may choose to move into executive session. When the board moves into executive session, the board members' microphones and video feeds will be turned off, and a similar screen as you see now will be displayed. When the board returns from executive session, their microphones will be turned on as well as their video cameras.
Welcome again to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
At this time, the chair will call the meeting to order and take a roll call, as well as explain any additional rules that may be specific to this board.
Internet access. To view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. You will be asked to enter your name. The board requests that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You will also be asked for an email address. You may fill in this field with any entry in an email format, for example, jane@gmail.com. Your microphone will be automatically muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about that agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish. Phone access. If you cannot get internet access, you may get audio-only access by calling the phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you will be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to either enter your panelist number or wait to be admitted into the meeting. You will not have a panelist number, so please wait until you are admitted into the meeting. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star, then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 5 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If the connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued on a specific date and time. This information can be found on the board's website. Instructions to attend the State Hawaii virtual board meetings may also be found online on the board's website. I leave it to you, Chair.
At this time, I would like to take a roll call. If a member is here, please stay present. Vice Chair, Dr. Kristen Coles.
Present.
Dr. Corinne DeSoto,
Present.
and the chair, Dr. David Kern, is present. There being a quorum, I would like to call this meeting to order at 2:05 p.m. I'm not sure if everyone was able to see Christopher's notes regarding initially a postponement of the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, and then a reprieve on that because he was able to bring the meeting to an update that we can review if everyone's had a chance to review our last minutes. We review those with any questions regarding additions or changes to those minutes. Did members have a chance to review or see the minutes from the last meeting, the updated, completed view?
Chair, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. There was an additional information that we require for the sunshine laws with your roll call. If each member could please go through and state whether they are present or alone in their locality.
And alone.
And alone.
And present and alone, sorry.
So I'll go through again, please. In the roll call, we'll review present and alone, or if there's others with you. Again, Vice Chair Coles, please.
I am present and I am alone.
And Dr. Corinne DeSoto, please.
I'm also present and alone.
And Dr. David Kern, Chair, is present and alone.
Thank you, Chair. You can just skip back to where you were.
Minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then again, this meeting has been called to order as of 2:05 p.m., December 1st. I'll just go ahead and ask members regarding the minutes of August 4th, 2023, if there are any changes or improvement to the notes as stated. Any changes, any questions?
Yes, this is Dr. Coles. I noticed that the page numbers are not correct. You'll
Yes,
see at the top.
Sorry, I did update that on an even newer version.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw that when I printed them out for this meeting. It's not substantive content, so
Yeah,
I think we can
that
adjust that after.
Yeah, that can be fixed.
Okay, I just wanted to state that though, because I found something that I was going to mention, but
Oh,
then when
okay.
I wanted to tell you the page number to describe where, I realized there were 2 page 7s.
Right.
Okay.
So on the draft I'm looking at, there's the true page 3, which is on what I'm looking at is page 7, but at the bottom, the last paragraph, this is, I don't even know how important this is, but Vice Chair Kristen Coles, it says Cole. There should be an S added to the end of the last name.
Good, that's a good correction.
Sorry about that.
Yes, that is not a minor correction. Thank you, Dr. Coles.
Any other additions or corrections? If there not being any other comments to the notes of August 4th, can I have a motion to accept the notes as corrected?
Can I actually ask one question first? Sorry.
Please.
There's just one thing after we had discussed the change or the addition to the formulary. I had mentioned last time just a question. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be added in the minutes or not. I had a question about how the formulary has like an effective date at the top, which now reflects the effective date of the last meeting. And I had been speaking to another physician in my community who confused that as being the date that our formulary was voted into law. And I had requested that we add something like that stated the date that it became a lot to be added, and it wasn't added. And it's not in the minutes that I had made that request.
Is that something that we can update?
Yep.
Without a vote from them?
Yep.
Okay, so that sounds like a house cleaning change, so that we don't need to do a vote or how to add it to the agenda. So I can clarify that on the top of the formulary.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question then about that. Exactly how that's going to be stated in as much as the board reviews formulary and updates the formulary. So is what you're requesting, Dr. DeSoto, then the date of the original formulary? Because the formulary is a dynamic piece of information that is added to over time. So relative to your colleague and to yourself, exactly what is the information that you would like to acknowledge or see on the formulary?
Well, I think that I was just trying to see if there's some way to clarify the confusion that this other medical doctor had, that I understand his confusion, because he was under the impression that naturopathic doctors cannot prescribe. And so I directed him to the formulary to show him that, yes, in fact, we can. And then he said, oh, I see that you just recently received this addition to your scope of practice. And so I guess anything we can add that would clarify that it's not like it wasn't just this year that we got this privilege.
Yeah, I can set the title of the document to be the formulary established on, and we do the date that it was first started, and then I'll do updated date.
Yeah, like a last updated.
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. Again, any other changes, questions, comments to the minutes? The meeting has already taken longer than we were expecting, so this is great. Okay. With that being said, then, is there a motion to accept the minutes as have been reviewed and as have been corrected? A motion, please.
I motion to accept the minutes.
A second, please. Was it Dr.
This
Coles?
is Dr. Coles. I second.
Okay, thank you. And then if I could, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
This is Dr.
Any-
Coles. I say aye.
Okay. Are there any opposition to the acceptance of the minutes? No. Then the minutes will be accepted as voted on, and we'll move on next to the, so many papers here. It's the executive officer's report. Sir, the floor is yours, Christopher.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so on letter A, legislative information for the 2024 session. Right now, it's pretty quiet as far as on our side of things. There may or may not be an emphasis on the emergency responses since the last session. So there may be emphasis on healthcare, but I don't know what subject matters, perhaps ongoing for like telehealth and these other modalities that basically became an issue for during those crises. The legislative session of 2024 is going to be the second in the biennium. So bills that were introduced last year would be introduced this year. Or sorry, they would be carried over, but they'll still need to be introduced by a legislator and in order to be heard by the committees. Right now, I think there was only one or two from last session. The typical CE bill that carries over, and I believe the cannabis certification bill. I'm not sure if that one made it in or not, but to a hearing, but I think that we'll probably see that again. That's kind of really all I have right now. The next meeting is going to be February, I think, 8th. This is going to be the first time the board can meet after all the bills have been introduced in the session. So the next meeting, you should see the list of all bills that were introduced to the legislature so that you all can do a vote if needed, or at least discussion. So that'll be seen on the next meeting minute agenda.
Which is actually February 9th.
Sorry, February 9th. And so with the administrative matters, so we've been making some updates to the application form, primarily because the last time we needed to, there was no section for the naturopath to inform the board whether they were licensed in another state or not. So we added that because that's under HRS 436B is something that the board can request. This allows us to ensure that there is no disciplinary actions in other places, basically. So we added that, but we're also adding in there information about how you submit your applications. For example, parenteral and minor office surgery applications aren't reviewed until you have a license, or at least they can't be approved until you're licensed. So what the clerk has been experiencing is that people are submitting all of their applications together, which is logical. However, because of our database, they can't enter those applications until after the initial application has been approved. So we're going to try and encourage people to hold off on submitting the parenteral and minor office surgery applications until their other application has been received and pretty much has been approved. That way we can enter those other applications immediately into the database. This is kind of like just house cleaning on our end. I just wanted to alert the board that if you do have people talking to you about their parenteral therapy applications and whatnot, and there being differences in how things have happened, I just thought that this might be a good informational opportunity.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Will that create like a delay in the amount of time before someone would get their parenteral therapy license approved?
I don't think it would do anything. I don't think it will do anything generally. Each application is going to be different. Luckily, the initial applications are pretty much merely submitting your transcripts, license verifications if you have any, and your exam scores. So there's not a lot of other things like, for example, like some kind of like clinic work verification or something like that that you would need. So those tend to make other boards kind of slow them down, but I don't think it would be the case here. The major issue is just the clerk knowing where to retain the other applications if they can't be entered into the database yet. And so there's a lot of like hard copy holding on, but some applications are submitted not as hard copy, but as digital. So then they have to find some home until they can be entered. This is just one way we're trying to work on it. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to think of something else, but really, I do not expect any delays. And then the last thing on here is the disciplinary action of licensees. And since the last meeting, I reviewed the disciplinary action notices and have not seen any naturopaths being disciplined.
Yeah. I have one other addition here, which I'll phrase and my other colleagues, if there are any questions regarding renewal of licenses, which are due by the end of this month, December. If any questions have come up, and to the best of your knowledge or information and other members that you or colleagues that you speak to, is most everyone aware license renewal is required, that the board has sent out notices, forms that will need to be filled out, and CE requirements turned in. So any questions from the board members regarding that? No. Nope. Okay, good. Then we can move on. Review of the advisory committee member candidates. My question here, is this a executive session item? I noticed on the page of the suggested additions, it had confidential on it. And so do we not mention names? Are we just accepting or supporting those members? Is there a clarification?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for those clarifying questions. And before we discuss, so yeah, the names are meant to be kept confidential, as you know, because these folks will be helping with RICO inquiries. Therefore, if you have specific information about any of those individuals on the list, the board can go into executive session to discuss. Outside of that, if no member has any issues with the advisory committee additions, then the board can just move to vote the approval.
Okay. Do any of the members have any questions regarding those recommended two colleagues recommended to be added to the advisory committee? I might add, I'm fairly certain that these are members who have participated before in the advisory committee, and are, let's see, what's the term? Seasoned members, seasoned colleagues. So I think they're good choices. Anyone have any concerns or issues they would like to bring up or mention? No.
Nope.
Nope.
No issues.
No concerns.
Okay.
And Chair, I just wanted to note, sorry about this, on the agenda, it does state Psychology Advisory Committee for that agenda item. I apologize about that. We're just making a note for the meeting here that this is meant for the Naturopathic Physician Advisory Committee.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. I had seen that and I wasn't sure if the advisory committee was being expanded or if that was designed as therapy for members who are on the advisory committee. But okay, so we don't need to worry about that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Then if I could have a motion of acceptance for the recommended members to the advisory committee. Did I state
Dr.
that?
Coles, I move.
Okay. Is there a second?
And I will second.
Okay, all in favor then of accepting the recommended members to the advisory committee, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Dr. Coles, I say aye.
And is there any opposition? No, I hear no opposition. The motion is passed and the members are recommended. Okay. Our next section 5, listed as licensure, reciprocity, and professional/educational organizations. I will make an effort here to try to provide you a very concise explanation of why this is on here. There are a couple of layered issues, but the layered issues are related to one another. I'm sure either in the process or at the conclusion of my synopsis, our executive officer, Christopher, may have comments or even our Deputy AG, Chris, may have comments. But what, again, I'll try to do is put this together for you. You're aware of all the information that was put into your packets. Just a note, prior to when we were having these Zoom meetings and we were meeting in person in Oahu, we would have packets. And so those packets you could look through the various revised statutes or the administrative rules, and then we would turn those back in. So because of the virtual meetings, all those types of Hawaii revised statutes and the Hawaii administrative rules have to be downloaded. And so it can appear, I would think, a little overwhelming as to where to look or what to review. And so again, we'll make an effort to help with that, and then you can reference those as needed. This conversation actually goes back to 2007. And so in the packet, you will see board notes, including from November 2007, and then in year 2008, February and May and August, concluding with notes from 2019. I happened to be on the board at that time, so I'm quite familiar with the process and the discussion. And I'm going to start with the Idaho board. And that conversation actually began in February of 2008. And at that time, it was brought to our attention that there was concern with the Idaho board as to if the governor at that time was going to supersede the board or in some way affect the board's authority. Subsequent to that and moving forward, what in fact has happened, apparently there's been a parallel board that's been set up, also identified as a naturopathic board that was kind of voted in through the legislature, but with very loose rules and requirements, but was set up in the event that a medical doctor or an osteopath or somebody else in the health field might want to become a naturopathic doctor. Now, as I understand, they might have to drop their other designation as medical doctor or osteopath, but it was a facilitated effort in establishing the ND license, of which the national organization, the AMP, and the local board is trying to clarify in terms of how that would actually work and how it could affect the safety of the people of Idaho. So again, fast forward, I was contacted by one of our colleagues in the state raising concerns about this issue as it might relate to somebody coming into Hawaii and identifying themselves as a naturopathic doctor. Well, hopefully, as you're all well aware, and as is identified in the notes that have been downloaded and through some, I would consider, hard work on behalf of our executive officer, Christopher, to give you the, again, administrative rules and revised statutes, we have a very clear and identifiable means by which somebody can become a naturopathic doctor. So it's not simply, of course, somebody saying, well, I'm a naturopathic doctor acknowledged in this state, that then there's reciprocity coming into Hawaii. We have quite well-defined boundaries. And that's something we've discussed and talked about with regard to just recently parenteral therapy, the going through applications, applicants having to be part of a recognized and certified school of naturopathic medicine, et cetera, et cetera. So relative to the concern that was brought to my attention, that concern as it relates to us specifically is, I think, under good control because of how we've created the rules and the statutes for becoming a naturopathic doctor. Related to that is how the term naturopath, naturopathic doctor, naturopathic physician, ND, can be used in the state and who can use it. So again, going back to the notes of November 2007, at that time, there was a question raised about the use of NMD, naturopathic medical doctor. And at that time, one of the board members, actually Dr. Steele Smith, had raised a question that somebody had come into the state as a naturopath and was using the term, and that a question was asked of our Deputy Attorney General as to their ability to use that because there was not such a status in the state of Hawaii. Subsequent to that question, you can see then in notes of February 2008 and May of 2008 and August of 2008, that conversation was carried forward. And I will synthesize it for you as it did become adapted into amendments of the naturopathic law under the Administrative Rules 465 on the titles that are used in terms of naturopathic physician. Simply put, NMD cannot be used in the state of Hawaii. So as we know, that's commonly used in Arizona, but an Arizona naturopath cannot come into the state of Hawaii and actually carry forward NMD. So within the definitions of Hawaii law, only an ND acronym can be used, or any of the terms that relate to naturopath, naturopathic doctor, or naturopathic physician. There is a caveat to that, that as part of this discussion that I'm relating, a discussion that I was having with the executive officer, we were reviewing the law and of what I've attempted to relate to you. And actually, something that I was not familiar with is that there's actually part of our use of titles in section 1688, 7.5, number 4. It states, shall not use the title naturopathic medical doctor or the acronym NMD, semicolon, provided that this prohibition shall not apply to a naturopathic physician who is licensed as a physician or an osteopathic physician in the state. So when I conclude this summary, that's one question I have, because I don't recall that at the time being included in the discussion and the amendment in use of titles. So that's a question I have for both Christopher and Deputy Attorney General Chris. One last thing, and then I'll finish up. It was also brought to my attention that there is on Maui, and apparently has been since 1978, that I'm not aware of or haven't been aware of, an institute of healing called the Natural Healing Institute of Hawaii. Again, this is in your notes, and it verifies itself as being accepted or approved by the American Naturopathic Medical Accreditation Board, of which I'm not familiar with. And this program allows for students to complete study and receive a license of naturopathic or certification, perhaps not a license, a certification of naturopathic practitioner or NP. Now, as far as I'm aware, and this then is part of this conversation, that is not legal. No one can be generating a program. So this is the question of carrying over this conversation of what an individual can do and how an individual is identified to a program and a program's ability to use the term naturopathic practitioner and then allow the student graduate to refer to themselves as naturopathic practitioner. So again, I'm hoping that synopsis with a lot of different aspects to it carries some clarity. And again, as part of the notes that have been in your booklet. And again, this is being brought up to kind of update and reintroduce into notes from what was originally discussed back, as I said, primarily in 2008. So I'll stop talking, and Christopher, you may have some clarifying comments to make with regard to that or additions to that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, let me just, if you guys don't mind, I'll just go through currently the requirements for the license to list out for the meeting, and as well as the ND license and reciprocity. I'll go over that real quick. So to be licensed as a naturopathic physician in Hawaii right now, you will have to obtain the doctorate for naturopathic medicine through a university or school that is accredited by a Department of Education recognized accrediting service. So as you know, I think is it CNME? So they do the accreditation that this state acknowledges. And so with that said, sorry, let me bring it up, the statutes here. So specifically, the education requirements are that the applicant shall be a graduate of a school, university, or college of naturopathic medicine that has received candidacy status with or has been accredited by a regional or national accrediting body recognized by the United States Department of Education, provided that any who graduated from a college of naturopathic medicine prior to 87 shall be deemed qualified if the college was approved by the board prior to 87 and has been accredited by the regional or national accrediting body recognized by the United States Department of Education. So that last part is just kind of like to capture kind of some grandfathered folks at the time that the rules, or at least this section, was written. Whether or not that's applicable now, I'm not sure. If there is, in fact, people still practicing from those prior to those dates, but the initial part of that statute is really the bread and butter. The statutes itself don't have anything further on the education. The rules provide a section 12.2 for educational requirements, and in that section, it states that the naturopathic medical education shall be a minimum of 4 academic years within residence curriculum in basic science and clinical didactic studies, as well as clinical training. So that's the additional information about the courses. So, for example, we get a lot of people from Nunham. that school is itself accredited by by CNME, and so therefore recognized by the Department of Education. So it meets that. Their program is a 4-year program, and so upon completing that degree, the core license would be accepted as far as the board is concerned. There aren't any other additional verifications, for example, like some kind of like clinical work or something like that. It's within the program itself, and I think that we just accept it as such. The exam that is required for licensure through NABME is a 2-part exam. There are additional so that's the NPLEX, right? And that's 1 and 2. And there are additional voluntary exams you can take, one of them being what the board will accept for minor office procedures privilege. Currently, the board does not accept the exam that NABME has with regard to parenteral therapy. That would need a change in the rules. So currently, that for the parenteral therapy, your education, for example, the exam for that therapy privilege. However, you can use non-school course providers, like the board approved in the last meeting, or it can be in the education of that 4-year doctoral degree, which the verification of is sent in from the school's dean. So those are the basic requirements for licensure. If someone holds licensure in another license type, they'd still need to provide evidence that they have what we require in this license chapter. So, for example, if a medical doctor wished to even be considered as you noted, Dr. MD, they would still need to have the 4-year naturopathic medicine degree that is not within their medical degree. It wouldn't for our intents and purposes, that is what we would look at. We couldn't say transfer over some medical degree over to naturopathic medicine. And on top of that, the board right now does not have reciprocity language. Therefore, everyone who applies for naturopathic medicine in the state is on the same footing when they apply. They provide their transcripts and their exam scores. And I think lastly, I just wanted to go over just for 6 in case this comes up in the conversation. The professional associations are approved by the board to approve continuing education. Outside of that, the board doesn't have any authorities to approve associations in general. It would just only be for the continuing education part. As far as the naturopathic schools, there wouldn't also be an authority to approve schools because it would be based off of the accreditation that they hold and whether or not that is acceptable. Anything outside of that would require statutory change or rules change. And therefore, just keep that in mind as you consider the discussion. Thank you.
Thoughts, comments, a lot of information there. And as I say, there's a few layers. Hopefully the topics that are being addressed express enough clarity. If either Dr. Coles or Dr. DeSoto, if you have any comments, questions, or thoughts about anything that's been said.
This is Dr. Coles. I mean, it sounds to me like we have fairly tight, specific language for our state regarding the black and white of who can get a license to practice naturopathic as a naturopathic doctor here. In regards to, I think there were a few things you were throwing out in terms of, it sounded like you had a question about that notation of NMD in the language. I don't have anything to speak on that other than it sounded like that was like a question mark. And then regarding the school in Maui, it would seem to me that that would be something for us to pursue in terms of, it does not seem appropriate that people would be able to use those terms as a naturopathic practitioner or certificate of it. I mean, it doesn't seem to me like that is something that should be allowable.
I'd just like to add to the section that Dr. Kern was bringing up, section 7.5 of the rules, does list certain terms that can be used by a licensed naturopath. I brought up to Chris the question of, well, what does this mean for those who are unlicensed? So because it's oriented towards what the licensees can use, not what people who are unlicensed can't use. So I just was clarifying with that. He might have some additional information on that. But the term naturopathic itself, like the like adjective or whatever you would call it, it itself alone isn't a protected term as far as being in parentheses. It's always connected to like either naturopathic physician or naturopathic doctor, something like that. So with the addition of the term practitioner, that there's a question there. And I'm hoping Chris can help us with that in the near future, because it makes me feel like that term was thought of within outside of our parameters. So
right. I mean, I think my concern, this is Dr. Coles again, would be as a board member here to protect the public. Many times practitioners may just call them a naturopath, may just call themselves a naturopath, or many patients will say to other people like, oh, I go to my naturopath for that. And if we're going to say that the term naturopath could also include individuals who just get a certificate, that seems to be a public safety issue, in my opinion.
I'd like to add, thank you, Dr. Coles. Of what you just said, Christopher, does not line up at all with my experience on the board. So, you know, this now will be my 16th year on the board and dealing with certain related issues. And, you know, as a 6-time president of the HSNP, there has got to be a half dozen examples of where somebody who was not licensed as a naturopathic doctor used the term naturopath or any manifestation of it, and we went after them. And went after them through RICO, that term and that designation cannot be used. So, you know, I apologize for not being able to identify it in our statutes, rules, and so forth. But what you just stated doesn't line up with actions of the board or the state association that has ended in people not using that term. Nobody that I'm aware of in the situations of which someone inappropriately was using the term fought against that and said, oh, yes, we can. As soon as it was brought up, each of those situations, the title was discontinued, such that, yes, they can call themselves naturopathic practitioners or naturopathic natives or naturopathic dancers. But my understanding is that is not legal in the state of Hawaii, that term actually is a protective term.
I'm only, thank you, Dr. Kern. Yeah, I'm only going by what is in parentheses in the rules. That does not mean that the confusion caused by using a term that is highly associated with the practice is not still problematic. I just wanted to bring that nuance up, because both Chris and I noticed that. And so, we're ready and willing to address that, even though we have saw that. So I,
Well,
so if you assumed I was alluding to, like, there's not much we can do, I don't think that's the case.
Well, not, I mean, that may be a small part of it. My point was, no, something has been done about this previously. So this is not something that has not been directly dealt with under, again, my familiarity that there is a protection in the use of the term naturopathic doctor. So whether the current, through conversation that you and Chris may have had, oh, there is something we can do about this. My experience is there has been things that have been done previously through, other boards and, through the state association, as I already mentioned. So
I think that there's also, yeah, there are the protected terms, but there's also the definition of naturopathic medicine, which is also protected. So that also is additionally, I'm assuming if somebody describes themselves as a naturopathic practitioner, that they're probably going to be doing something within naturopathic medicine as defined. So then again, that is also potentially a violation.
Well, okay, again, I think anyone in any of our counties, and definitely this was the case in, when I was HSMP president, coincidentally also on the board, but we took quite serious and did go after anyone who used the term in any form naturopath. Under what we can, well, under what I assumed or believed was a justifiable correction, that it simply could not be used. So I would appreciate if we not simply look at this as something we can correct, but if in fact somewhere, within our rules or definitions, there is something that provides already more exclusivity to ND or naturopathic doctor as a term, or I'm well open to being corrected. I just know action had previously been taken and taken with positive conclusion.
This is Dr. DeSoto. I think I have a question about this in that, you brought up the question about the term naturopathic blank, whether naturopathic anything would be a protected term. And I was looking back at the meeting notes and it doesn't look like naturopathic itself is included as one of the terms, just naturopathic physician or naturopathic doctor. And so I bring this up in part because that's kind of how the school is using that term, NP, naturopathic practitioner, as a way to try and get around it. And because last year we had someone bring to our attention on the HSMP board that there was a health and wellness expo being held in Honolulu at the Blaisdell Center that was advertising that it was a, where is it? Naturopathic lifestyle expo. But really the main topic of the expo was medical cannabis. And so we reached out to them to try to tell them that they couldn't use that term. And they were very clear that they, under their understanding, they could, because the term naturopathic lifestyle was not in violation of our statutes. So I guess my question is like, to your point, Dr. Kern, are we trying to add additional terms that are then protected under the naturopathic license, or what are we?
Well,
trying
that apparently is an option, clearly, and I think that's what Christopher was referencing, that yes, we have the option here to adjust under 7.5 on use of titles. And even though if we expand, again, I think as Christopher was clarifying, this statute references a naturopathic doctor and doesn't necessarily clarify somebody who's not a doctor using the term. And again, my point was, whoa, wait a minute. I addressed issues of people who have used the term who are not, doctors to a positive outcome. But if in fact what we have done in the past, in fact, is not codified or is not based in law, well, that then even becomes a whole nother issue, because at this time, I would definitely be raising question about the capacity of this Natural Healing Institute of Hawaii on Maui being able to provide naturopathic practitioner certification. Again, of my experience, that is an inappropriate term, even if it is used with practitioner. Naturopathic should not be an acceptable term in providing a certification. So yeah, two separate issues there, Corinne, is that we have apparently the ability to expand, incorporating, as you just pointed out, the term naturopathic. And I'm raising the question under the belief that there had been controls in any part of the term naturopath being used by a non-naturopathic doctor, somebody in the community who did not meet the standards of a naturopathic doctor.
I would add that just generally speaking, when it comes to complaints on licensees and state, they can be submitted to RICO at any time by any individual. Additionally, though, I guess I would like to clarify from this board if it's wishing to file a complaint as well.
Well, I would offer the raising a complaint of this school on Maui and using the term naturopathic, but most obviously, if I don't have grounds to stand on, then it becomes a bit of a moot point. If the interpretation here is that in fact there is not any kind of a control or extension of the term naturopathic or naturopathy to a non-doctor. So yes, but
I mean, I think, I don't know, maybe Chris can correct me here, but as far as interpretation, that would be for like the hearings officer or the court to make that distinction. So someone can have an interpretation of what naturopathic medicine means above and beyond what the definition says or what it doesn't say. But that's neither here nor there unless it actually goes into like a court case, a court hearing, because that's where that's going to get teased out. So anyone can, if they believe a violation has been committed, they can file a complaint with RICO.
Well, but I would say it does matter quite considerably. If I'm going to, one, participate, as a board member in filing a complaint and if I'm looking ahead to any kind of court hearing, I would like to be standing on pretty solid ground so as not to put the outcome, at a 50-50% benefit to me or loss to me, or to the board or to naturopathy. In other words, what I'm saying is I would like there to be a more substantial clarification of the term, not solely left up to the hearing, but that if we're going to make the time and the effort to file a complaint, we're doing it based on a justifiable existence of rules or laws to do that.
Are you asking to then to amend the rules?
If the rules need to be amended to either include additional terms, as Dr. DeSoto has pointed out, or if in fact, as you read the rules or as Chris interprets for us the rules, that the use of the term, any form of the term naturopathic, if the existing rules do not apply to the public, then yes, absolutely, I want to amend the rules that the term naturopathy, naturopathic doctor, naturopathic physician, naturopathic healthcare is a protected term that cannot be used in any other condition or with any other person who is not a clearly licensed doctor of naturopathic medicine in the state of Hawaii, as is identified in the criteria for becoming a naturopathic doctor.
Okay. Are you okay with us looking into this in the meantime?
Members?
Yeah,
Yes.
this is Dr. Coles. I think the reason to have licensure for naturopathic doctors to pursue in a state, it's not just for us, it's for the public. It's for the safety of the public, so that the public knows and associates the term naturopath with a licensed naturopathic doctor in the state. I mean, that if you look at unlicensed states, that becomes the primary driver in those states for many naturopathic doctors to pursue licensure, is so that the public understands that anyone associated with the term naturopath has gone through accredited training, has the ability to safely treat and, provide medical services in that state. So I think it's very important as a licensed state that we protect that term for the public.
Well, and I would add to that, and why this is a little confusing to me and why we're having to protect the term. People can't go out and call themselves medical doctors. People can't go out and call themselves dentists. People can't go out and call themselves a chiropractor. So what is it in the licensing of those other professions that gives them protection that somebody can't use the term? Are there specific laws within the licensure of a medical doctor, an osteopath, a dentist, that codifies their title as is different from the codifying of naturopathic doctor? Is it in fact based on the fact that we don't have a rule? If that is the case, then the answer to your question is yes, we absolutely want to move forward. I'm just a little surprised at this point in the process that this is coming up, and that, again, it's not codified, and asking the question, well, what distinguishes us from these other professions, which most obviously people can't go out and use the term or suggest they play a doctor on TV.
Okay, I mean, we can definitely look into this and give you a further report at the February meeting.
Okay. Anything else, Dr.
If there's any other additional updates between then and now that's administrative on the board side, I can also update you on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in agreement that we should clarify this because I think your point is a good one, David. It's not like there's somebody out there who's like calling themselves a dental practitioner and can do that and practice and not be a doctor of dentistry, right?
Well, definitely, I know that there was unlicensed practice with people trying to put like grills on themselves for dental, you know, if you know what a grill is. And yeah, no, they couldn't do that. So we'll look into this, and I understand the philosophical question much better now. Thank you.
Okay, so again, at issue is how protective the term naturopathic is. Number two, if we need to expand more clearly the definition. And as a part of that, number one is if, in fact, there is any legal basis on which a complaint can be filed against someone using the term naturopathic at this time with some certainty that they are, in fact, breaking some law or doing something illegal. Okay, that sounds good. And if there are no other comments or no other new business to be brought up, our next meeting is scheduled on Friday, February 9th at 2 p.m. Thank you for everyone for your input. Thank you for being here this year. Shout out and acknowledgement to Christopher for all his hard work and multiple tasking and preparing us for this meeting with all the rules and regulations. Thank you, Chris, for being there and being our backup and lawyer in charge. There are many others I would compliment for being here and helping support the board. I don't know you all. I haven't met you. I see your names as part of the meeting. So if I don't direct compliment to you, please receive from us as board members our deep appreciation for helping support naturopathic medicine in the state of Hawaii. To my wonderful colleagues, thank you for being on the board, and to everyone, a very happy and safe and fulfilling holiday. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. Happy holiday and happy new year.
Thank you. Have a safe holiday.
Yeah.